Hi guys, Harbs and Narbs here. Today we're going to be talking about the creative origins of 3 iconic monsters from D&D. The reason I have chosen these monsters is because they are creations that Wizards of the Coast actually own. They haven't been released in the open game license. Officially, this is all written in something called the System Reference Document, but on the Wizards website it simply says the following if you use Wizards IP inappropriately. You must immediately take down your fan content or face the Demogorgon, which basically translates to, we'll sue the shit out of you.
I'm looking forward to completing your training. In time you will call me Master.
You're gravely mistaken. You won't convert me as you did my father.
Beholder. In an interview from 2005, Gary Gygax said that it was Terry Kuntz who had the original idea for the Beholder. For those that are not aware, Gary Gygax is the original founder of Dungeons & Dragons and owned TSR, the company that published the TTRPG, before it was bought out by Wizards of the Coast. Terry and his brother Rob were involved with Gary Gygax at the advent of D&D, but Rob contributed to the game a lot more than Terry, with his name still appearing alongside Gary's and several others in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. However, Terry did give D&D one of its most iconic monsters, and in the AD&D Monsters Manual published in 1977, Gary Gygax wrote the following in the preface. Terry Kuntz, who was never thanked for his prototypal Beholder, a revised version of which was included in Greyhawk. In a forum for discussion of original D&D, there was a sort of Q&A with Rob Kuntz in 2010 regarding Terry's Beholder. Rob had the following to say. I will say that Terry's Beholder differed substantially due to his coverage of it as first presented through short story form, which detailed its ecology and family. Yes, Beholders had a family structure, and in Terry's conceptualization, these were ill-understood and rare creatures living out waning existences in forlorn and out-of-the-way areas. For instance, in his short story, it's located on a mountain where its family is encountered. Upon receiving the material from Terry, EGG genericized it, in my opinion, making it rather lackluster by comparison. Unfortunately, this short story is no longer around, and Terry says the following in a special edition of Dragon magazine called Monster Ecologies in 2007. A few people may remember that my brother Terry Kuntz created the Beholder, a monster which I have a fondness for. He first conceived the beast in a short story, where a family of these things lived on a mountain and where a hero adventured and encountered them. Yes, that's right, even monstrosities such as these reproduce. It was a good story, but now little remembered as the manuscript perished in a fire. But not before Terry presented the concept to Gary Gygax, who immediately included the Beholder in supplement number 1 to od&d Greyhawk. Mind Flayers. On a Q&A on a website called N-World in 2005, Gary Gygax was asked if he came up with the Mind Flayers, and he said the following. The Mind Flayer I made up out of whole cloth, using my imagination, but inspired by the cover of Brian Lumley's novel in paperback edition, The Burrowers Beneath. The Burrowers Beneath was written by Brian Lumley and set in the Cthulhu mythos, created by H.P. Lovecraft, of which the Mind Flayers would fit neatly into. The Mind Flayer made its first appearance in TSR's Strategic Review No. 1 from spring 1975, being described as a super-intelligent man-shaped creature with 4 tentacles by its mouth, which it uses to strike its prey. If a tentacle hits, it will then penetrate the brain, draw it forth, and the monster will devour it. Illithids themselves have been a source of constant mystery in D&D, and they are probably the most intriguing monster when it comes to their in-game origins, because nobody really knows where they came from, and it seems to vary edition to edition. Second edition's The Illithiad suggests that they are from the Far Realm, whilst the 3.5 edition Lords of Madness states that the Illithids fled from the distant future after an apocalyptic event. Although modern D&D players frequently switch between the name Mind Flayers and Illithids, the term Illithid wasn't first used until an adventure called Descent into the Depths of the Earth in 1978, which is the first adventure to explore the monsters in more depth, rather than just their combat abilities. The name Illithid could probably be associated with how the Mind Flayers actually see themselves, with Mind Flayers being a more literal interpretation on how non-Illithids view them. Whilst the in-game origins of the Mind Flayers is a mystery and the behaviour of the Illithids differs slightly from setting to setting, they are, without a doubt, one of the most terrifying monsters in Dungeons & Dragons, having inspired a number of monsters in several video games, films and TV series. Githyanki. In British magazine White Dwarf, which at its advent focused on all types of role-playing games, including Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, there was a section called the Fiend Factory, where readers and gamers could submit their ideas for monsters to the magazine. The most popular monsters from the first 13 issues of White Dwarf were selected to be in the Fiend Folio, an AD&D first edition supplement containing a variety of monsters. One of the monsters that was not only included in the Fiend Folio, but also used as its front cover was the Githyanki. Here we can see the original entry in White Dwarf magazine issue 12 from 1979 by Charles Stross. The name Githyanki was actually taken from a novel written by George R.R. Martin called Dying of the Light. The Githyanki were not the main focus of the book, but the name of the race was mentioned. However, it is safe to say that the name was all that was taken and that the Githyanki in D&D are vastly their own. In an interview with Lightspeed magazine in 2014, Charles Stross said the following regarding this. I basically took the name and ran with it for this species of extratemporal alien horrors for Dungeons & Dragons back in the day. In the late 70s, I was looking for a name, and George R.R. Martin has always been pretty good with names. And then he continues with, I took the name, yes, rather than any detail. As for the relationship between the Illithids and the Githyanki, Charles Stross said the following in an interview with The Kingdoms. The Illithid/Githyanki relationship probably slid into my mind as a result of reading Larry Niven's The World of Patavs, which features a psionic master/slave race relationship far in the past that nearly killed all the sapiens in the galaxy when it turned hot. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos like this in the future, then do please give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!